Hey, so a big question I get is how do you find a good title company when you're doing virtual wholesaling? So in this video, I'm going to give you the exact strategy I use to find title companies when I'm doing a virtual wholesale deal. So when I first started real estate wholesaling virtually, I made a lot of mistakes. One of the biggest ones I made was going with the wrong title company. Now, we did a deal out in Georgia, right outside of ATL, and we got a deal under contract. The numbers were good, and we found a buyer that wanted to pay in cash. So it seemed easy. It was supposed to close in 2 weeks, but it ended up taking almost 3 months because we went with the wrong title company. To this day, I have no idea how we got the deal done. The buyer got cold feet multiple times. The seller was ready to throw in the towel because everyone was just so frustrated with the whole process. Now, it took me countless hours of phone calls, chasing everyone around and doing everything I could just to get this one to the finish line. And like I said, this deal is supposed to be straightforward. It's easy 20K. It should have been done in 2 weeks. It was frustrating as fuck, but we still got it done. I learned a bunch of valuable lessons on how to find the right title company. And I'm going to share those with you guys today. So hopefully you can avoid those mistakes and just follow the strategy I'm using now. So one of the big things you want to do when you first start looking for title companies, you want to make sure you're asking them the right questions. So the first thing you want to do is you want to call them and you want to ask, hey, do you guys deal with assignments? Because you need to find a title company that's wholesale friendly. And if they say, oh, I don't know what that is, or let me check, you're going to want to move on to the next one. You're going to want to make sure, again, that they know what wholesaling is, that they do assignments, and if they're uncertain at all, just move on and call the next one. So the second question you're going to want to ask, you're going to want to ask if there's any limits or caps, because a lot of times what will happen is certain title companies, they'll say you can only make X amount of dollars. We had one that we're supposed to make a lot on, and we ended up going with the title company. We didn't check, and they said the cap was 20K when we should have been able to make a lot more than that. Now, we could have moved it looking back, but that one was on a short window, and we already had the title process started. We didn't find that out till later, so that kind of bit us in the ass in that deal. So another thing you want to ask is if they can double close, if they can do blind HUDs, or you really just want to talk to them and ask as many questions as you can think of. Another big question I like to ask is, do you have mobile notaries, or what their process is for doing mobile notaries, or how you can get money to them. Usually it's a wire, but just making sure you let them know you're out of state, you're going to be doing it all virtually, so just make sure they can still get that done for you. And then if the seller isn't super close there, because a lot of times we'll work with a title company that's not super close to the seller if we don't know the market very well right away. So we want to make sure it's easy for them. They don't have to drive an hour away. The buyer doesn't have to drive an hour away. So if it's all mobile, if they have mobile notaries, it's usually a lot easier. It's usually fairly inexpensive if they offer that service. So the biggest thing, going back to that deal I mentioned in the beginning in Georgia, the biggest issue with them was communication. So we found out, it was super hard to get a hold of them. And one thing I do differently now that I should have done then is I actually call them and I ask to talk to the people who's going to be handling it and see if I can get them on the phone. Because if I can't, it's going to be tough. And another thing I should have done is I should have looked at the reviews, and because a lot of these people had the same issue. So what happened was, they said everything was good. I called, checked up on it. They said everything's good. It's a cash deal. It's going to be super smooth. And then literally a day before closing, they said they needed all of these documents they never told us about. And the buyer was pissed, the seller was pissed. They're like, no one ever told us that. They called too. They spoke with the title company and they said everything was smooth sailing and they were good to go. And so they were very surprised that it wasn't. And then that just kept happening. So we'd get them what they needed. They'd push it back a couple weeks and they're like, then day before closing, we need all this other stuff. And it was impossible to get them on the phone was really the biggest issue. Because after it happened the first time, I'd call them like, hey, where we're at, on this deal, exactly what do we need to get this done? And they'd say, oh, no, you're good. When I finally got a hold of them, but I'd have to call them like nonstop to get a hold of them. And I've since learned they probably just didn't want to work with us because there's a small deal. They're probably trying to hint that I should have, went with a different title company. But we're already in there, and the buyer, it was his first wholesale deal, so he was already sketched out, and he was very sketched out that he couldn't get a hold of title. So it was really me just, reassuring him and, really just having to like literally force this one title company to get on the phone with them. And since then, like our process is a lot better, and that we work with some great title companies. But this one was just a nightmare. Really just every step of the way. And then they switched people on us. So we finally got them, and they switched them. And then it was 2 months in, and they're like, oh, we need all this other stuff. The first person should have got it. And it was just really just severe lack of communication. So after we got that done towards the end, I'm like, this is crazy. And I looked up the reviews, and lo and behold, we weren't the only people this happened to. There were so many bad reviews. So I should have looked at the reviews, should have seen what other people's experience was, and I would have saved myself, shitload of headaches, and, really wouldn't have been pulling my hair out the whole time. Because, it sucks when, you think you have a home run. And the worst part about it is, one, just, we're lucky we even got that one done. But besides that, it was just like how much time it took away from me in the business. Since we don't have a specific transaction coordinator, it was me getting on the phone and figuring it out. And, really, just calling them nonstop. So it was a nightmare. So make sure you do that. Make sure you ask the right questions. Make sure that they have good communication. Make sure you look at the reviews, see what other people are saying. And then when you finally find a good title company, make sure you take good care of them. So one thing one of my mentors taught me was, he really goes above and beyond for the title companies, and we started doing that too. So once we find a good one, we want to build that relationship with them. So if we do another deal in that market, we want to use them again. And, a lot of title companies, they don't really want to work with wholesalers, because sometimes if, there's issues with title, it can be a lot more work and a lot less money depending that they make than it would be, doing a traditional, buying something off the MLS and they're working with the realtor. So main thing you want to do is find a good one, build that relationship. So we send them breakfast every time we close a deal with them. We'll buy breakfast for their whole office. It's only like $100 or so, a couple $100, depending on how big their office is. But they really appreciate that. And then, really just let them know, hey, we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys going above and beyond. And now they make our files, when we send them a deal, a priority. So instead of that deal in Georgia where the one they didn't want to deal with and they kept putting us off, now the title companies we work with, they take great care of us, and, we make sure we do the same. Because real estate, it's all about relationships. And especially, if you get a good title company, you want to nurture that relationship and keep it going. That's really the big things, finding a good one, and then really just making sure, on top of that, once you have a good one, that you're helping the process along. Because you never want to be the person that's just calling you saying, hey, where's it at? And if you're just stressing them out and calling them all the day, you're going to say, fuck you, and, you're going to go to the bottom of that pile again. So to really stay on top of the pile, you want to ask them, hey, what exactly do we need? So you can get a checklist of what needs to be done, and try to help them along the way. Maybe that's reaching out to the buyer, and getting any documents the buyer needs. Maybe that's reaching out to the seller, making sure they're good, because they have a lot going on. And unfortunately, you need to take fortunately, you got to take extreme ownership, and you need to really do whatever you can to help get the deal to the finish line. Because just because you got it there doesn't mean it's done yet, and you don't get paid till the whole process is completed. So again, just to recap, do the research, look at the reviews, ask them the right questions, make sure they have good communication, make sure when you call, you can actually talk to someone and ask them what it's like working with them. And then once you find a good one, hold on to them, because then you can just keep using that same one again. And make sure they know what assignments are and they can do assignments, because last thing you want is, them not being able to do that and you have to switch and find a different title company late in the game. So hopefully that was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you guys have any other videos you'd like me to make, again, I'm an open book. Drop a comment, let me know what you'd like to hear about, and make sure you subscribe so you can see all our newest videos, and literally going over everything in wholesaling and virtual wholesaling that we do, because since then we've done deals all over. We've done deals in Florida, Georgia, Washington State now, California. I think I already said Florida, sure, a few more I'm forgetting, all over Texas. And it's once you start doing it virtual, it's so much easier because you don't have to go look at the properties. And one of the big reasons we started to go virtually was because San Antonio is one of the most competitive markets. So if you can be in a blue ocean where you're not competing against everybody else, it's a lot easier. Obviously, we still do deals here, but you can get a lot more leads and you can work from anywhere. So appreciate you guys. You guys keep crushing it one day at a time.